300.
After having swept the bus.
That's right.
So it is now obsolete.
Oh, yeah.
The
I've only been
tenant,
to,
he
I've been
get us
to
straight.
Maryland,
The
I've
tenant,
been
Okay,
to,
maybe
was
I'll
in there
email
like
you
cows, he
what
goes,
change it to make sure
Cows
it's sync with what you're.
Cincinnati.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll do roll call.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Emerson.
Here.
Mr. Freiders.
Yes.
Mr. Goodmanson. Mrs. Haji-Sheik. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Stoddard.
Here.
Mrs. Turner.
Here.
Chairman Pietrowski.
Here. Okay. At this stage, I would like to. Well, actually, we'll have to. Do we have to do a motion to invite the?
Yeah.
Also moved.
Misty might be here.
Oh, that's Sandra.
Sandra, okay. Misty didn't call, so I think she might just be running late or something, but I know John Goodmanson called, he's not able to make it tonight, so we'll invite, if I get a motion to invite Mr. Luebke.
So moved.
And who's the Vice Chair of Health and Human Services? Is that Maureen?
Yeah.
Vice Chair? And then invite
guess what?
Maureen Little as well on the Executive Board tonight, so we had a motion, we had a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, please come forward.
Come on down.
Alrighty, folks. That's mine.
And then if I get a motion to approve the minutes.
So
Moved Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Emerson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we will go ahead and do approval of tonight's agenda. Moved by Mr. Luebke, seconded by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Any public comments tonight? I do know that there was one constituent that reached out and emailed Ms. Haji-Sheik that wanted something read about before our discussion on the health, the proposal in terms of the, so if Misty doesn't come, we'll see. I don't know if they emailed me or, but they said they emailed her and she said that she would read it. So we'll touch that when she gets here.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of it.
Yeah. So anyway, any other members of the public here? Okay. Seeing nobody's comments, chair's comments. Nothing really new to report. I did do the state of the county address in May, where Gary and myself, Ruth Ann Tobias, and Misty Haji-Sheik and Tasha were all able to go and give our report on our county to about 100 people or so in Geneva at a country club. And we did it with the chairman of Kane County and the vice chairman of Kendall County as well, gave their updates. So it was good, interesting to see kind of what they're dealing with as well, and then they got to see some of our accomplishments. So that was an interesting event. And then just hope that everybody can make it to the groundbreaking event for the jail on June 15th at 5 p.m. So we'd love to see as many of you county board members there as possible. We'll also be sending out invites to some former board members that have had, their voice heard on this jail topic, or they've, discussed it in years past. So we want anybody that wants to be there to be able to be there. So that's all I've got for chair comments. Now we'll move on to approval of the election judge list. And there are copies here of that if anybody wants to take a look. And again, these were both approved by the respective chairmen of both the Republican and Democratic Party here in DeKalb County. But any questions? If I get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Little, seconded by Mr. Freiders. Any discussion? Anybody need more time? Good. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And we'll move on to the appointments for this month. So if you can take a look at the appointments that are coming up, and just let me know if you have any questions on any of these. Both Mary Supple and Maureen Little were willing to serve again on the County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Any questions? Let's seek a motion to send these appointments on. Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we will now move on to Mr. Emerson.
Planning and zoning, we had one ordinance, 2016-05, approving the zoning map amendment for 9970 Kesslinger Road in Afton Township. It's where Reed Brothers Farm Equipment was and Rich's Tire. The committee approved the zoning map change for the property located at that address. Planned development commercial to PDI, planned development industrial. Basically, you got a septic tank company that cleans out septic tanks, and they want a place to park their 3 trucks, do a little work on them. Not do any storage of material there, have a place for 8 employees to check in at, and 4 of them in an office, and that's basically about it. So it works well for the property. We approved it. That was that.
Why does that need an amendment?
Paul?
The property is right now zoned PDC. That zoning was applied in 1991 when the county went through complete rezoning of everything. And so by zoning law, the only thing that was approved was what was there at the time it was rezoned, because it doesn't have an ordinance for saying what can happen there. It was retroactively applied. So anything other than a tire dealership required some sort of zoning action. And as long as we were going through a zoning action, because the commercial pumping business actually fits better as an industrial or type use than it does a commercial use, which anticipates more retail or on-site service, rezoning it was the exact same process basically as, say, a special use, so that was the way to resolve it. And I will add to what John said, that not only does it allow, if it's passed, allow the pumping business, but it also allows the property owner in the future to do any of the permitted uses in the manufacturing district if it's a change in use without having to go through this whole process again. They just go to the P&Z committee for the change in use. So it's got that advantage as well.
Yep, that's it.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Brown.
Our committee, Economic Development, met last night, and our county clerk, Greg Johnson, brought to us an ordinance to put the county's ordinance in line with the state's, and that's regarding raffle and poker ordinance and approval. The state has added the poker run option to raffles. And those of you who haven't been on a poker run, it was explained that you either get on a motorcycle, a snowmobile, or a car, and you go on a circuit, and usually pick up a card and a beer each time you stop, and at the end, who has the best card. So it was fun kind of talking about the pros and cons of the run, but it's becoming more popular in DeKalb County, and we wanted to have our ordinance match the state's. Now, it was brought to my attention tonight that we did have some discussion last night about a $20, $5 fee being imposed for applications, and as I thought about it a little bit more, Gary, would you be in a position to just explain what has occurred in the last 24 hours that we've learned?
The intent, I believe, from the committee was that we would charge for-profit businesses the $25 fee, and any not-for-profit charitable, we would not charge anything. Chris pointed out just before the meeting that for-profit businesses can't even apply for the license. So we will change that, which basically removes the $25 fee.
Everybody know? And I didn't put her up to judging that.
Thank you for that additional research. Yeah. So we'll be bringing that for the full board for consideration. In other business, Mary Supple gave a report on the progress of the business incubator, and 8 applications have moved on to the second round, which would be in-person interviews scheduled in about a week or so, with the July 1st opening of the incubator being anticipated. And a second invitation to apply will go out soon with a deadline, I think sometime in later July. There, and we've been, I understand, very pleased with the quality and the variety of applications to date. And finally, the DeKalb Area Arts Council, it was reported as restructuring some as they look ahead to the future, and some issues such as how best should the Egyptian theater be managed are on the table as part of that. That's our business.
Mr. Freiders?
Law and Justice has 2 resolutions to bring forward this month. The majority of our discussion was spent discussing the funding of the sober living home. Mr. Hanson and Gary brought up forward a solution to the shortfall at the sober living home of providing the home with a one-time addition of $75,000 to be used to fund the completion of the, it's called the remodel of the home out of the Opportunity Fund. They obviously, as everyone I think knows, have run into many unforeseen problems in the building and completion of the project. Some code problems that they hadn't foreseen, and just some general construction problems that they hadn't foreseen and that have arisen. It is their belief now that with the addition of the $75,000 from the Opportunity Fund and some donated funds and services, and what they now have in their in the drug court fund, that they should be able to and would be able to complete the construction of the house without any more money from the county.
Up to $75,000.
Up to $75,000. Pretty sure though that it would take $75,000. I wouldn't count on getting any of that money back. They are very confident in their monthly budget that they can meet their day-to-day expenses. Very confident. In fact, they believe they would have a little money back, excess money every month. But that's very, very tentative. I would not count on that. They they have a little money to play with for if the monthly electric bill is higher than anticipated or the monthly heating bill is higher than anticipated. So they do have a little money to play with, but not a lot. So they should be able to handle. Maureen, you were there, so feel free to say if I'm what you think also, or anyone else who was at the meeting. They should be able to handle their monthly expenses without this becoming a line item on our budget, which the committee stressed would be not acceptable to the county board if this was to become a line item on our budget, and they are very confident that that would not be the case. So with that in mind, and with much hesitation from the committee, we are asking to move forward with the resolution R 2016-45, providing the $75,000 needed from Opportunity Fund to complete the sober living home. And can we answer any questions anyone might have?
How much is in the Opportunity Fund?
Around $3 million.
But we're not going to be putting any, that $3 million is the $3 million. There's not anybody, it's stagnant. it'll be there until we spend it down for different projects and programs. One thing I wanted to say real quick too is, we've talked with Gary about this and everybody else too, and Tracy's been involved with so and you,
Right.
John, and
Right.
everything. I think it's a source of frustration for all of us.
Absolutely.
Because this is something that we've been wanting to have open by now, and it seems like a new thing would come up so it's really tough to swallow that, but I do know that it's lead piping and some other things that were some unexpected things.
Some water damage.
The water damage and things, but one of the main things though that I do see as a positive step is that we are, as part of this agreement for the $75,000, making sure that our county staff is going to take over the project.
Yes, that,
And-
good point, Mark.
Yeah.
They're going to be changing, not leadership isn't the right word, but the management of the day-to-day operation of who's taking care of and looking in on the project, so that some county personnel will be overseeing a little more often and checking in on it a little more often to see that things stay on task. And I think they'll have a better handle of what's going on and a better handle of the budget, and should be able to keep it flowing a little quicker and moving along more.
In your committee meeting, did they give a sense of when they feel like with the county staff working on this that they'd be able to get
2
these
weeks.
projects done? In terms of, obviously, I believe within this year, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think there's, what was the, I don't remember to tell you that I was curious. What was said, Gary?
I don't know if they're the exact months, but I think in the 5 to 6 month range, they're hoping one of the unknowns is we could go into the street. So again, we need an IDOT permit to do that. That's
But those are
moving the
things
jail
that-
out of our control.
But those are things that can be handled now in terms of trying to file.
Right,
for the
as soon as we
permit.
have this authorization, we'll
Okay, good.
start ramping up and getting going what we can.
The lead pipe that Mark was talking about is the water feed crossing the highway. It's still a lead pipe providing water to the house, and obviously with what everyone is aware of in the news in the last number of months, it's a situation that, being that the county is aware of, it's something that needs to be replaced, just for the simple fact that it's not a good situation, and it's just another probably maybe $10,000, I think was the estimate, and it's just something that in all prudence we need to take care of. So something that wasn't expected, but one of those things that in old construction comes up and you have to deal with.
Is that the city of Sycamore's responsibility, not ours?
No, I don't
Because
think
it's
so.
in the
I think
city
it's
of
ours.
Sycamore.
We bought it.
It's
Yeah.
The lead pipe from the water main to the house.
From the water main to the
The water
I
main
think generally
under
it's
the
the
under the highway.
homeowner's responsibility from the water main out to the house.
Yeah. I think that's the problem in Flint, Michigan, that same thing, and they have to deal with it too. So.
Any other questions on that topic?
Our other resolution has to deal with the fire dispatching agreements. They have been agreed to by the fire districts. They've started to come in very slowly, but they are coming forward. As well as some of the money, I think has started to come in very slowly there also. But we are moving forward, and it's time for the county to approve the agreements as they come in, so that we have the authorization to sign them and send them back. And this is just a resolution saying that we agree to them. They're a 5-year agreement. Basically, all the details have been worked out between the sheriff's department and the fire districts. They're all pretty much the same. It's laying out the fees. They are a 5-year agreement, but the fire departments that can opt out after each year if they so desire. So basically, it's locking in the money 1 year at a time, but it's locking the money in for 5 years, but they can get out after 1 year if they if they like to. But it is still moving ahead slowly, but we're at the point where we need to approve this resolution so it can keep progressing.
Any other questions? Ms. Haji-Sheik?
Hello.
Hello.
Apologize for my lateness. I was at another meeting that got out late. In fact, I left before it was over. We have something on the agenda today, the resolution. It is the public health tax levy referendum. And I'm going to let Jane Lux speak to this in just a minute. But what I wanted to say is that there has been a bond that has been in use. We paid the bond off. And the idea is to extend that money, which would be no additional money out of the taxpayer's pocket, so to speak. I'll come back to that in a minute. To extend that out and use that money for services as opposed to bond. Now, when I say out of pocket, the wording on the ballot says it's a new tax, so you can look at it either way. But the health department has made 34 full-time equivalent cuts already. They have done a lot of things, and what this money would be replacing is grants. Partially, the biggest one, 2/3 of it, is women, infants, and children, the WIC program. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jane. She can answer any of your questions.
Yes, I'm here to answer any questions or further information from what Misty gave. I did give a presentation at the meeting, and I'd be glad to answer any questions beyond what Misty said, or if there's anything specific you wanted me to address tonight.
And again, I believe you all, last month when she gave the presentation before the full board. Any other additional questions?
I'll just mention with that, somebody here suggested that the questions that do come in, we should gather up and then send out to everybody. And a few have come in, so we'll get that out before the board meeting, so everybody has all the same information.
The difference in tax on a $200,000 home is $22.88. That's what we're talking about, to the taxpayer.
But it is a tax that's already in place. We're
Correct.
just redesignated in effect and saying this is a new tax.
Not
Do this, not do
exactly,
that.
but it's close.
The wording that
It's
has to
kinda
be
like
used
that.
says new tax, but yes.
It's an
The old
What
one is
happens-
expiring.
No.
The old one is expiring. What we would do is we would ask for a certain amount, which sounds like a lot of money because you have to ask for the full amount. And then the county board would limit it to the $22.88. We would impose upon ourselves that limit.
That's an education effort.
Definitely. And that's one of the issues is that we're asking to put this on the ballot, and then the voters would be the ultimate judge of whether or not it gets passed. It's not us passing a tax tonight or next week or whenever. It's up to the voters. And so we have from now, next week, until the November ballot, if we put it on this time, to get all that education piece out there.
What do you mean they would have to limit it? Why would you, what's the, you mean you have to you could raise it?
You have to ask for the full amount, which I believe is 10%.
Up to 10%.
Up to 10%?
33.
Yeah.
I think it was $33 on a $100,000.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then from
Max.
there, we could limit how much we ourselves are going to take out of that. But the wording on the ballot is going to be, you have to put the maximum amount out there.
So then you could also take the maximum amount.
If we as a county board decided to do that, that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying just to keep the tax flat so that no one feels it in their pocketbook.
But if they got in the bind, they could.
No, once
No,
it's passed,
that's-
it's passed. You cannot raise it once it's passed. So it goes to the voters say, yes, please do this. We are locked into $22.88 because we imposed that upon ourselves. At a later date, we cannot change that without another referendum because we're not home ruled. We have to do it a certain way.
And so full disclosure though, our board would have to vote to levy it at the $22
And our intent in the budget count is we're going to do that in October. We'll vote the $650,000, so it's locked in place
Right.
Before the election.
before the election, so everybody knows.
So it's not one of those bait and switch type things.
Right,
or anything
because,
like that.
Nobody wants that.
The problem of trust me isn't going to work, I'm thinking.
So
think people have been burned a little bit too much?
So even by a board vote, it couldn't go up after we limited?
That's correct, because it'd be subject to the tax cap, and that's like, this year be a 1.5% increase, so.
Sue?
I did want, you said about 2/3 of it will go for the WIC program, and the other third goes where?
Jane, it's a couple of different grants. You want to go over that?
Actually, and this is in response to...
I've got a question. So.
Sure, yeah. What are the programs that would be most vulnerable to be cut? And, my response to that is our programs that are funded by grants, because those are the programs that have lost the most funding over the last decade, and especially the maternal and child health grants, because they're actually about 2/3 of the total grants. So that includes WIC, family case management, family planning, is the maternal and child health program.
What happens, Jane, if those funding levels start to rebound, assuming the economy actually ever turns around?
Or the state it reinstitutes the grants?
Yeah.
Well, then I guess we'll be rebuilding what we've lost over the last 10 to 20 years. And, it's to continue to provide the same services that we're providing. And, as you saw, just in the last 6 years, from 2008 to 2016, the amount has decreased just in those grants 14%. So it would take a while to build that back up.
Jane, how much have you lost as far as the federal grants that you get? I know you mentioned this before, for the last 10 years, your grant money from both the federal and the state have gone down about 15%.
18%.
18.
08 to 2016. And of all of our grants, about 67% are federal monies and about 37% are state-only monies.
Jane, would you also address why you would be cutting services as opposed to staff, if some of it mandated by?
Yes, and I think this was one of Mark's questions, mandated versus non-mandated, and the maternal and child health programs are not mandated. But, any reductions in staff would result in reductions in services. They go hand in hand at this point with our current staffing. But if you want to reduce costs, it is staff. Basically, that's 83% of our expenses.
And would you also tell us if this does not pass, because the voters have decided no, what would be the effect to the health department?
Then we would have to start workforce and service eliminations and reductions.
And what would that look like to the taxpayer of elimination of services without, and I know you can't be super specific because you haven't gotten there yet, but what as a taxpayer might I look at if I voted no?
So overall, we looked at all the specific programs, but even if we were to just reduce staffing in maternal child health programs, say, those are our staff who help us respond to public health emergencies like communicable disease outbreaks. When things like that happen, we pull everybody in, and other kinds of emergency events. So basically, the health department would have a reduced capacity to respond to any kind of public health problems.
I missed the $22.88 figure was based on a home value at
$200,000. And the other figure was $33 and some change for a $100,000 house if you ask for the maximum.
Which is how it would have to appear on the ballot.
It would appear that way on the ballot, yes.
What is your total budget?
About 3.5 million.
3.5 million. So you would go to just below 3 million.
Would go, I'm
If
sorry.
if it didn't pass, is
If
that
it
what
didn't
you're
pass,
asking?
Yes.
Well, they're not currently getting those funds.
Right.
So you would stay at 3.5 million.
They'd stay at 3.5. Well, presuming that grants continue and stuff, and then, because Gary's here, what percent of county general funds go to fund the health department?
They currently get about $400,000 from the general fund and tax levy around that same amount. So $800,000 out of the
3.5 million. The rest of it's federal and state.
And that actually is, what Gary just mentioned from the county, is 23% of our total budget. 75% is grants and fees.
I see this is suggested for the general election coming up in November. Is there an option to go with another election?
The other option would have been the primary election because there were no local elections this year. To be in 2016, it had to be either the March primary or the November general.
For 2017, what might work there?
If we went to 2017, then the current property tax would drop off and we'd have to start anew. So it would defeat the purpose of having the continuation.
Okay. I was just thinking that it's going to be a tough election in November. Having been through one myself one time, a lot of things to think about, and this would be way down the list. But
Yeah, that was the exact question that I had brought up too, and I had advocated that, you know, we have a new director coming into the health department. I think they need time to evaluate and analyze the health department in terms of how it's operating compared to where they've come from and maybe their vision on where they think it needs to go and reforms needed or not needed, things like that, and where we need to allocate future funds. So I think we really need a long-term solution that we need to come up with. I'm not sure we're there yet. I think that we should do this in April if we're going to do it. That was something I brought up at the Health and Human Services meeting, committee meeting, and I do still feel that way. I did say that I would move it forward to the whole board because I think we all should have a chance to question and answer, get our points of view out there on this particular topic, and ultimately, whatever we decide, you know, the voters will be able to have a decision on this, whether it's November or April or whatever. But I do think that I'd like to work more with the new director and have us communicate with the Board of Health as well on just strategic planning for how do we make this sustainable, because my thought is we're going to continue to have less and less involvement from the state and federal government. So what does that mean? Is the county going to have to step up more? You know, how do we make this work? Because the health department is critical to our county. It's critical to the United States. You know, you can't have mumps outbreaks, and we need all the benefits in the WIC program, and we need all that. So how do we fund it? How do we, keep these going? Because in the analysis that Jane presented before, if we go at the current levels, even without it, and again, these numbers might change too. She had a future project based on the amount that we've been losing from year to year. But by 2021, we would run out of reserve funds if we don't get anything passed. If we do get things passed, by the analysis, we'd run out of funds by 2026. So that means, regardless of anything, we need to address how we're funding our health department, how we're,
It's actually 2027.
2027. Our programs, one additional, but our programs, because if we just sit and still do nothing, eventually we're going to have to face cutting programs down the road. So how do we sustain that? And that's a tough question to ask. But I really want the best plan moving forward if we're going to talk to the voters about this, because property tax increases, when people are looking at moving out of Illinois, they're moving out of the area because it's just, it's too much for them. There's too many things going on, and it's little bits here, little bits there, and all these different government bodies, and then before you know it, it adds up to quite a bit. Now, that still means that if it's needed, you got to be able to ask for it, and so I believe that, and let the voters decide. But my personal thought would be April, so I'll be voting to move it forward to the full board, but I won't be voting to put it on the November ballot. But I do think that it's important that we all talk about it, that we get our ideas out there, and So,
The other thing about moving it, two things is, one, the health board did approve it to come this far. They are behind it. They are in favor of this. The other one is that if it waits until the next election cycle, that $22.88 on a $200,000 house goes away, and then you have to start over again. So you could then ask for whatever you wanted to, and it wouldn't be a continuation, but it would be a new tax, and yes, they would still $22.88 or whatever it is for their personal house, less for a short amount of time. But if you want to continue the services, then you would have to be facing it at that point. Sandra, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to understand.
Tracy.
I think we need to be
Yeah, I see
careful
it.
of a couple of things. To clarify what Misty's saying, to be clear, when the voters approved those bonds 25 years ago, they were told that they were going to disappear. So I know it's a handy thing to say, well, it's not a tax increase, we're staying the same. Voters are told that it was going to go down.
I hate to interject, but
Right.
the voters never got this question.
It never went.
We put it in right before the tax caps came in because of the way of getting it in place without a referendum.
So this levy was never voted on?
No, it's
Period.
not. Just by the county board.
Okay, thanks. Well, the other thing I think we need to be careful of, if we put it, it's easy to say, well, hey, I don't know, let's let the voter decide. I think that if this board votes to put it on the ballot, we are implying that we want the voters to vote in favor of it. So I think we as a board need to be sure that if we want the voters to be in favor of it, then we put it on. If we don't put it on and say, well, I'm going to vote against it myself, but let the voters decide. My personal opinion is that's not the right thing to do.
Well, I see that as backwards, actually, to be honest. I think by voting not to put it on the ballot, you're saying we don't trust you to we don't trust the voters to decide for themselves whether they want this or not. We're saying we're going to decide for you. So, I think, if Mark's approach is probably the best, let the voters, I don't, you can say whether or not you support it, but I think it's up to the voters to decide whether or not they want this.
But if we as a board, it would be silly for us to say, well, let's put it on the ballot, but we're not really in favor of it.
Why? So the only reason not to put it on the ballot is to say we don't trust the voters to make the right choice. We think the voters will do irreparable or will do harm to the county if they vote the wrong way on this, so we're not even going to give them the choice. The only harm that they will do to the county is to raise their taxes. We'll get increased or at least maintain levels of services from the health department, which is a plus in my mind. And then it's up to the voters to decide whether they are willing to pay for that or not. If they're willing to pay for it, there's no harm to the county because they've said, yes, this is something we value. If they're against it, then they're against it. And you can write all the letters, you can write letters to the paper if you like, you can talk to people you know and say, we put it on the ballot to give you the choice. Personally, I'm not in favor of it. I think that's a very legitimate way to go. I don't think just because we put it on the ballot says you guys have to vote for it. And even if we do that, just because they think we want them to vote for it doesn't mean they'll vote for it. It might mean just the opposite.
Yeah, I think putting the question on the ballot.
2 weeks ago.
I think
We wouldn't
putting
put
the
the school on the ballot because we didn't think they would vote the right
Yeah.
way.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think putting the question on the ballot endorses an answer to it one way or the other. I hear what Mark is saying. I actually very strongly disagree with Mark about when is the right time to put this question on the ballot. I think it's better put on the ballot as soon as possible, given the dire situation that our health department is telling us that they're in. I think we know they do necessary service for the people in this county. And I have said before, and I'll continue to say it, I see firsthand every day the good work that they do for the people of this county. And so I think that the education that's going to have to come after, the question about whether or not we put it on the ballot will be the work of the people who feel strongly about it, and that may or may not be the people on the board.
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't think putting the question on the ballot in November endorses a vote one way or the other.
The question about putting it on November is, do we have enough time to get the education piece out there? That's a big one, forefront in my mind. Sue wanted to say something, and I know Jim wants to.
Real quick, and when you say we, it's
being
not
the
us.
county board.
No, well, it
No,
won't be us. It has to be a separate entity that runs the campaign.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh,
talking
right.
about that, I'm talking about, well, okay,
The
fine.
education aspect.
The educational piece, we as a county board have to make the decision whether we as a county board think there's enough time to do the education
Yes.
piece by
By
a
the
bunch of volunteers.
separate
There, is that
Frankly,
clear?
Yes.
I guess to my mind, the question, it's a new, no matter how you phrase it and what the tax burden on the individual taxpayer is, it is a new tax, in the sense that it's a tax that has not existed in this form. It's not, it started out as a bond thing, which ended, or is ending. It's gonna show up as a new tax on the ballot whether you put it on in November or April. Its appearance will be identical. And it will appear the same to the voters either way. I think, I do take Mark's point that we know we have a new director coming in, and that perhaps to wait until that person has some input on this might make sense. On the other hand, the budget is obviously in very difficult shape. And so, you know, I could go either way on that, but I guess the main point that I wanted to make is that it's, whether you put it on in November or April, it's still a new tax. I don't think that the people who are paying this tax are going to notice it really all that much, whether their bill has stayed the same or not. In fact, it probably will change until after April anyway, given the lag in things. I don't know if that's
And Jim wanted to say something?
Well, just brief. Giving it a fair hearing with the public, I would think it'd be better to do it in what should be a high turnout election rather than a municipal, which are stereotypically low. You could have a very small turnout and a very energized anti-anything group that would knock it right out in a small turnout election. In a large election, you get a better sampling of the people to say, yeah, we want to do this, or no, we don't. Give it a fair hearing.
Yeah,
November.
It's whether you want to hear from 60 or 70% of the,
There you go.
or about 20.
I do got some people back there, and I just want to say too, one of the things, the reasons why I felt in terms of delaying though, is that it would cost any entity that's trying to educate the ballot and stuff, less people to reach out to, so you have to raise less money for your campaign and everything. But so that's one of the reasons too for in April, and why you see a lot of these type of questions on municipal elections. But the one of the things too in terms of why I would advocate waiting is because again, if they were running out of money in January of 2017, it might be a different question, and we have the urgency and everything. But the analysis said until 2021. So to me, that says we got at least enough time to go to spring, and then to bring it up in 2018 if we have to. So that's kind of why I said that, because obviously I do know that there's an urgency there, but I just really want that, and to Jane's credit too, the new director is shadowing her right now, and she was at the Health and Human Services Committee meeting. I just really want them to have some more time to analyze the department while they're sitting in the director's seat. So I think that's important, and I don't know if we've got enough time with the fall election. But there are several questions. Let me go with Chris, Diane, Ruth Ann, and then Jane. Oh, Chris first. Sorry, Diane.
I thought you pointed.
I'm sorry, or we do Chris first and then you.
I'd like to ask Jane, you said that if this didn't happen, you would start reducing immediately. If we were to wait until, I'm with Marge on doing this as soon as possible, but Mark's point, if we were to wait until later to get this on the ballot, could you take a bigger draw out of your reserves for the next 9 months to help you get through until, without making reductions? Because Lord knows, once you start making reductions, it's harder to get things back. It's scaled back up again.
Right. I think that was the issue we were talking about yesterday, Chris. But just to clarify, Mark said we'd be out of money in 2021, and that was the analysis. Our fund balance would be totally at zero, but we should not wait for our fund balance
No,
to
of
be
course
totally
not.
at zero. So
But that's why we
for-
wouldn't, it would be 2017, 2018. There'd still be 2019, 2020, 2021.
Right, and so what would happen in that time period, it would be very hard to predict, but I think the prudent thing to do is what we've been doing since 2010, is that if we know that we are not going to have an increased revenue source, yes, we might be able to continue, we're in a plan of using our reserves right now, and if we have them, we might continue to use them. But we're gonna be looking at have to look at cutting more costs, pretty quickly, and not make any assumptions about, if you're doing financial planning, you don't wanna wait till the time where you have.
What is the ratio of the fund balance to your operating expenses right now?
It's high, it's 60-some% right now. But that goes down really quickly when you start having, deficits in the hundreds of thousands.
All right, so how long would you have before that got down to 30% or so? Would you estimate?
Well, what my analysis was how long we would have until we got to where our unrestricted fund balance level, we wouldn't want to go below. And the analysis for that was 2017 or 2018 at max.
Oh, so Diane?
I wasn't at your presentation. I read the stuff you sent me. Could you clarify something, and maybe I misheard? Your FTDs have already been reduced by 34. What services did you cut when you did that?
We cut our home care program. We cut our well.
That was the home health thing.
Home health.
Several years ago.
No, that was in December of 2012.
2012.
We cut our well child program. We cut all of our satellite maternal and child health program satellite sites in Sandwich. And we have reduced our maternal and child health programs.
Have you seen much damage or much change?
Well, if you looked at the data for the maternal and child health status outcomes and the low birth weight statistics, they are worse, which is really, those statistics are worse for DeKalb County than they've been in at least 30 years. I don't know what the exact cause and effect is, but, that is one thing, we noticed.
So,
and then
those
the
30,
ability to meet the
the
demand.
reduction for people or whatever has been over the last
Since 2010,
6 years. Thank you.
the end of 2010, December of 2010.
Thank you.
Everything?
I just wanted to reiterate what Misty said about the Board of Health and their consideration of this issue and how long they've been dealing with, watching the budgets decline and following Jane, working on a program, and we are very supportive of the issue on the ballot because we feel it's necessary and so it's something that the Board of Health is entirely behind.
And Ruth Ann is our county board representative on the board of health.
Mark,
Mr. Lynn.
one thing, I don't know if you've heard it on the radio today, the city of Sandwich, or town or village of Sandwich, whichever you want to say, decided to vote and put a 1% sales tax for the city of Sandwich only on the ballot for a vote down there. So, but they also, if we get these other school districts putting the 1% sales tax, the city of Sandwich alone is looking at going from a 6.25% sales tax to an 8.25 sales tax. So you're going to have other issues on the ballot. So I kind of go with Mark, if we could put this off till spring. It depends on who's going to put what on the ballot, but Sandwich has already passed that. Now, I don't know about the other school districts, if they decided now or not. So.
And in fairness, though, even in April, there might be other things on the ballot that, you know, and it's still not going to be all of a sudden an amazing climate for something like that. So, you know, the main thing is that it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort to educate and to try to make the case. So my only thing is that I want the best case forward that we can possibly do. And I'm just not sure that we're there yet. And that's my opinion. But again, that's why I want the full board to be able to have your say on it and everything. And again, because I don't want anybody to get the thought process that I don't care about the health department or anything like that. I think these programs are vital. I think the health department is vital for the health of our community, obviously. But in the other aspect of that, we are facing some realities of budget constraints with state and federal government. And if they're not going to fulfill their duties, then all those things, and we've seen it with other programs and other things too, it all falls on local government to try to either pick up the slack or cut it. Well, we can't afford to cut healthcare. So we've got to figure out how do we fund it, how do we sustain it. And if that's trying to, you know, push and lobby our state and federal government to fulfill their obligations, that's a combination of trying to, you know, try to reorganize or do whatever we have to do to keep programs and not try to make cuts to staff and everything. We've got to analyze everything, but I think that we need a little bit more time. But again, that's my opinion, and everybody else has their opinion too.
If we put her on the ballot in November, and it doesn't make it, can we put it back on the ballot in April? And
Yes.
you have the experience of.
So do we lose anything by putting it on the ballot in November?
That's up for people's thoughts. I mean, my thing is that if you put a certain program on for the fall, and we have a new director and they analyze things, and then the plan or, you know, changes in the April, I don't know if that helps or not. But again, this is a tough subject to handle because we're talking about, regardless of anything, like Sue said, it is a new tax. And that's how it's going to appear on the ballot. So you're going to have a lot of people voting in a presidential election, and it's going to say on a $100,000 home, your taxes are going to increase by $33. That's when they go there, if they don't hear anything from any of us or the committee that handles this, that's what they'll see. They won't see the education about, well, no, it's really just continuing they're going to see that. And then they're going to have to make their decision of, yes, I think the health department deserves it, or no, they don't. And that's going to be their decision in the voting booth.
And normally when you put a resolution on to do something like what we're doing, a lot of times you have a whole year, which is why I keep mentioning that we only have a couple of months for the November ballot. Because this will happen in June, that gives you July, August, and September, and October. That's 4 months to try and cram a year's worth of education in there. So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Any other questions? Sorry.
I just want to say, I think everyone sitting here has heard your constituents say that property taxes are insane, and they are. And this is one opportunity the county board has to give as minimal a relief as this is to the taxpayers and the property taxpayers who foot the bill for everything that goes on. And I just think it's our one opportunity to do something for them, and I think we ought to do it.
We just got done warning everybody about passing sales tax.
That's right.
It looks bad when we're saying, well, not this one, but here.
But this one.
This one.
It all goes back to whose foot's getting squeezed.
Sales tax, again, we said was more regressive. A property tax does only hit property owners. A lot of the people that get these services will not be property owners. A lot will be renters. They'll be whatever. It's an education effort.
What's that have to do with it?
It is a less regressive tax. Granted, it ain't fair. No, the state should be funding education like they ought to be.
Yeah.
They've welched on a deal for years. And that shouldn't be then the property tax doing it.
Renters
The property
pay-
tax shouldn't be holding that.
Renters built in there.
Property tax.
Yeah, unless you got a really nice
Oh,
landlord. Renters still pay.
It's rolled into their rent, they don't see the bill.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the issue. The people that will be most objecting are the folks that are paying the bill, and they see the bill. A renter, no matter where they go, you're gonna be paying tax. and they get hit with the sales tax more.
I just wanted to also say that Representative Pritchard has said he will support the county's action on this if we decide to go ahead with this issue. As we know, he's pretty influential in the community.
I was gonna say, I'd rather he vote to keep the state grant money.
There's that too.
But that's, I've talked to Bob about that. So. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I did mention before you got here, there was a constituent, so they emailed you, and they wanted that email put to the public record for this, so that's up to you.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
So Finance met last week, had a very brief meeting, 18 minutes. So, two issues I think of general interest. One is the budget calendar, which will look like previous budget calendars. So I think we've all been through the process at least once. Everybody has a feel for what that looks like. The workshop will be, that's before the September meeting.
Yes, September County Board meeting.
So that's really when you want to keep your eyes open. Do try to keep, usually we meet at 6 o'clock before the September meeting to go over the budget. So I encourage everybody to try to keep that open and try to make that particular meeting. That's pretty important. The other thing is we talked about our fund balance as well. Last year we were projecting drawing that down by $740,000. We only drew it down by $600,000, so we did a little bit better than we were anticipating last year. This year the goal is to not draw on it at all, although I think we may slip. We're right around 30% of our operating expenses with the fund balance. We may dip down a little bit below 28% this year, but Pete says that'll rebound and we'll be at the 28% target amount going forward. So that's where we're looking at for the budget. So it's probably going to be less than pretty at that workshop in September. All the more reason to be there.
Will that be starting at 7 or 6?
6. 6 usually.
Any questions? Mr.
We met actually in here or over there, and then we went out to the new forest preserve, and so we saw the damage that had been done out there and the sculpture that had been torn off. Since then, Bob Canutula has carved another one, an owl, and he's going to keep the bases a lot thicker now. But then I was talking to Kirk Lundbeck, and Kirk was saying it sounds like the same night that we had the damage over at that forest preserve, that on the soccer fields over at Sycamore, that they did the same thing over there and went through, quite a few of them. So, so we just talked about the fact that, if anyone hears kids talking about that or anything, we need to, go ahead and make sure that we report that. But besides the damage there, we got the rock put in, so if anyone's gone by there, you can see the stones that are there. So anyone who tries that again is going to have a lot of damage to the bottom of their car because they're not going to be able to get through that now. So that was nice. And then we're just, the whole thing that's holding us up right now is because it's in a flood way instead of a regular land, we have to do all of these different grants. And so we'll be, not grants, approvals. And so we have to get all these different permits and everything. And so that's what we're working on right now.
Did it flood any time this spring?
No.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Broke the curse.
It did not. And so over on the other, exactly. Over on the other side, the golf course has a couple times, but no, the park has not. And we do have, I think I said that last time, we do have the 2 shelters that we're going to be putting in are metal, and they're there. They're not up yet, but we can't put them up right until Can we?
No, you need.
Oh, yeah, we need to have the
Yeah,
permit.
right.
And so, so anyway, they are there, and those will be metalled, so if it does indeed flood, there won't be as much harm.
Yeah, I drove by there, it's looking really nice, those limestone steppers look great, and I asked Terry about signage. To me, in driving by it, it would be nice if it said, we had a banner, a big banner that said, opening fall of 19...
Well, we don't know exactly when it's gonna be opening, because we have to wait for these permits, so that's a little bit premature to go ahead and tell.
But there is signage, but it's like 8.5 by 11, it's very
Right.
small.
We've always had very small signage, that's what Terry likes. So, and like I said, we don't wanna jump the gun, because it totally depends on all of our different permission things and everything that we have. We're hoping that we can go ahead, and open it, August, September, but it's gonna totally depend on, because we still have some stuff coming from IDOT, right? And IEMA. And so there's some different things, and it just depends on, how long that takes. So that's why we don't wanna jump the gun with it.
We do hope that when we open it, though, that we make a bit of a deal out of it. We ought to
Right.
make a deal out of it, invite state representatives, representatives from IEMA, from FEMA. They've said that this is actually a model project, so we
right.
really shouldn't, just casually open it.
Right.
We should be proud of what we've done out
Probably
there.
some former residents.
That too.
Yes, so we just have to wait until we get all of the permission.
Right, of course not.
He doesn't get to come. We could and show him how beautiful it is.
Any questions for Anita? Mr. Luebke?
Okay, Highway Committee has 5 items and one quick summary, and I'll keep it quick. We have Resolution R 2016-40, revised MFT resolution, Perry Road resurfacing project at Afton Cemetery. County Board hereby approves up to $26,000 MFT funds be expended in Perry Road resurfacing project Afton. Moving for its take forward County Board. Resolution R 2016-41, Waterman Road construction. DeKalb County Board is hereby authorized expenditure of $485,000 MFT funds for reconstruction 2 miles of Waterman Road from Perry Road south to McGurr Road, and recommend that move forward. Ordinance O 2016-03, designating a park zone. I think it's the first one in the county. On 5 Points Road north of Illinois Route 72 in Kingston. This was asked for by Kingston. A park zone, reduced speed limit zone for kids crossing back and forth. Hereby approved, establishing 20 mile an hour, and it'll be posted very clearly. Park speed zone when children are present on 5 Points Road north of Illinois Route 72 for the land owned by the Kingston Township Park District. Ordinance O 2016-04, altered speed zone for New Lebanon Road in Genoa Township, establishing a 30 mile an hour speed zone in residential section, New Lebanon Road, south of the railroad tracks, distance of 0.39 miles. And the last one is pending. We're going to meet right before County Board to approve this one to move it on. Award for pile timbers for Howison Road Bridge. They didn't quite have things ready for it to be approved at the meeting. Lowest bidder for repair of 3 timber piles. And then we have an update on the Coltonville Road Bridge. I'll just keep it brief. The bridge is complete. Road work and ditches are being worked on. And current contracting schedule start paving on the roadway Friday the 10th. Anticipate about 4 weeks of work remaining, depending on the weather, of course, depending on the weather with this project. And an update will be posted on the county website by the end of the week.
So while the bridge is complete, they still need to pave and everything. Oh, yeah. So don't all of a sudden tell your constituents, the bridge is complete, and then they go, well, it is. The sign's still
I think we'll do a grand reopening for that one too. Maybe Mark is having lemonade stand off on the edge, out of the way.
Yeah, lemonade stand off on the edge. We didn't want to do
still on the board.
We didn't want to do the ribbon cutting on the road just because we didn't want to get run over or anything.
Oh, that's not a problem. You can't get to it.
Sign-in sheet, Missy's got to sign it. So, any other questions? Okay, if I could get a motion to approve moving forward the county board agenda. Ms. Turner, seconded
We
by...
decide about the
county, the tax, is that moving forward, is full county board?
That's what we're voting on, moving everything for. So if you, I mean, we're gonna have a second here and everything, but if you don't want that moving forward, you could vote against moving forward the.
Or you can
county
propose
board
an
or
amendment to
propose
strike
a-
that.
Or, you know, ask for an amendment to strike it.
I'll second, just so we can go on with our
Okay, so Mr.
discussion.
Luebke seconds. Now, is there any discussion?
I'll chime in if I can.
Yes.
I really suggest you should move this forward. This came out of a standing committee
Right.
to the board. Usually, if you want it removed from the agenda, you do that at the board meeting when it comes from a standing committee. I encourage you to keep that practice going.
So so there's the discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And again, like always, that's not saying that you agree with everything that we're moving forward, but it seems that once it's out there, all the 24 board members can have a say and ask questions and stuff about those, any one of those items. Mr. County Administrator.
Okay, jail project, it's gaining momentum each day. Utility work is going on right now. The new water main has been installed. We were held up for getting an IDOT permit to get cut into Highway 23, but that happened and the work went very quick. So that's done. ComEd is supposed to finish moving the utilities on by Friday. Comcast has done their work. The real holdup right now is getting Frontier to get all their stuff in here and moved. So that's what's holding up actually digging the jail hole. But we're hoping within.
Well, that way we were going to do that on the 15th, right?
Yeah, we'll be starting on the 15th, and then the rest of the crew will come in about the 22nd or 23rd and really dig for us. But we'll get it started. So.
I think you may have just renamed the project, the jail hole.
And again, groundbreaking at 5 o'clock that day. We'll have a few speeches, a lot of photos, and some cookies and water.
Water.
To fit the jail theme.
Bread and water.
It should be bread.
It's gonna change this, yeah.
Do we have to wear orange jumpsuits?
Yeah. Just
You
the
could
For
speakers.
safety's sake.
You could make the cookies in the shape
Just
of
the
pieces of bread.
speakers.
You know, oranges and black.
Economic Summit was held. I know several of you were there on May 24th. We had probably 40 to 50 people there. Next week, we'll be meeting back with the planning team to try to figure out the next steps that we want to go for. But if you weren't at that summit, the Community Foundation announced that they were going to make available grants to every community in the county to continue that process of either planning or actually starting to implement some of the steps. And I believe it's up to $20,000 for each community over the next 3-year period. So a very significant part of this whole process. I'll mention the budget. If you remember earlier, at the earlier finance committee meeting, we talked about a $900,000 shortfall we were going to have to find. That has grown to about $1 million now. We're hoping it won't keep trending that way, but we're zeroing in on looking for $1 million of cuts or new revenues if we can. So Pete and I have sketched out some ideas. We are in the process of meeting with every department head in the county now to get their reaction to some of these ideas and hopefully spark some additional ideas. And then we'll circle back in July and refine things and get ready for the fall budget process, which will not be fun. Already talked about the sober living home and the business incubators. That's all I have.
We can find an elevator company?
Yes, the elevator was an issue because the two main companies, Otis or Kone, were not interested in bidding on the job. So we finally found a company in Iowa, Schumacher Elevator, and the concern when we first started talking to them was that they were going to have different size cabs, and that we'd have to reconfigure the shafts, and then it was going to mess up the designs up in the cell area. But as they work through it all, they have an elevator that will work into the existing design. We just have to it's going to be a hydraulic system as opposed to whatever it was going to be, so we have to take some more basement space and put an equipment room and things. So there'll be some changes with that because that wasn't planned. But, at least we think we have a company. It's out for bid today. We only expect one bidder. But
Do you
it's out
know
for bid.
generally if it's going to fit within the cost estimate
No,
of
that's the big concern, you know. When you know there's going to be one bidder, it's, but they said they're very responsive, very good to work with, so we hope, very honest. They're from Iowa, so.
Any advantages to, has anybody done any research on this type of hydraulic system compared to what they were going to use?
I think the hydraulic is the norm. They were going to do an energy, something environmentally friendly system before.
Look at the president. You got the labor there.
There you go, the labor.
The crank.
Environmental friendly.
It is environmentally friendly. Any other questions for Gary? Okay. Seeing that, we will, I'll now ask for a motion to move into executive session. Moved by Ms. Haji-Sheik, seconded by Mr. Luebke. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
You want me to do that?
Yeah.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Mr. Emerson?
Yes.
Ms. Haji-Sheik?